doesn't have to do that. I mean, he could just say what the Father tells him to say, but why does he go out of his way? It's kind of similar to, in some instances, when he prays out loud, like when he raises Lazarus from the dead. And he says, God, I know that you always hear me, but I'm praying this out loud so that everybody around me will hear this and believe in me. So, much like Jesus prays and shows us by example how we are to pray, he points out to us that he only lets words come out of his mouth that the Father told him to say. And he does that for an example for us so that we can do the same thing. I don't know about you guys, but not all of the words that I say are because the Father told me to say them. Okay? I have not quite mastered my tongue to that extent yet, to where I only say what the Father tells me to say. But 1 John 2:6 says, he that says he abides in him ought to walk just as he walked. Just like Jesus walked. He is our example. And we should only say what the Father tells us to say. Now, in my marriage, I'm the more talkative one. Okay, my wife is a better listener than I am, and she's back there laughing at me about that. But yeah, and like I told them all ago, it's amazing that she hadn't killed me yet, but she definitely loves me, so that's good. But sometimes she gets about 4 words in, and then I just tear off on some tangent or something, and but when I was little, my mom used to say, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all, right? If you ain't got nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. And I think this is a good practice for us to put into practice. If you're going to say anything, don't just say, is this a wise thing to say? But what if you ask God every time, God, do you want me to say this? I mean, how much closer would we draw to the Father if we only said words that he led us to say? And Jesus in verse 29, he lets us in on something else that he does that's really amazing. He that sent me is with me. The Father hath not left me alone, for I do always those things that please him. Okay, so Jesus not only says what the Father tells him to say, but he only does what the Father tells him to do. Okay? And that's a pretty good rule of thumb, is to always do what pleases the Father. But, something that just hit me when we read that again is that he says, the Father hath not left me alone, for I do always those things that please him. Does that mean that if he had done things that did not please him, or when we do things that don't please him, that he does leave us alone? Our sins separate us from God. I don't know about you guys, but in my personal experience of being a Christian, trying to walk after Christ, when I have fallen into periods of failure in some area or struggle or things in my life, for at least a while after that, it takes some reestablishing of the intimacy that you dropped when you decided to go check out for a little while. Jesus, the Father, never left being right here with the Son of God. Because he always did what pleases the Father. And verse 30 is interesting because it says, and as he spake these words, many believed on him. Now, so what did Jesus say? He said, I always say what God tells me to say. I always do what he wants. And people looked at him and they believed because he said that. Now, in order for that to happen, his actions had to match what he just said. Right? What it made me think of is Miss Sarah's here, Travis ain't here, but Carolina and Alabama are playing tonight in basketball, so I don't know what Travis is going to do. He's torn. But is he Alabama over Carolina or which one? No, neither way. Okay. But, here's the thing, and I don't like Duke, okay, but Coach K, I have friends that went and really, they would go to Duke basketball practices and stuff, and, Coach K is a Polish Catholic guy, but apparently he did not mind saying very terrible words all the time, and he said a terrible word every other word when he was in practice. That was his style, apparently, and, I get it. It's basketball. You got to get tough, but I'm not condoning that. I'm just saying I understand, that. But, Dean Smith, on the other hand, for years and years at Carolina, all of his players would say they never heard him ever say a curse word. In 40 years, nobody ever heard him say a curse word. And they said the same thing about Roy Williams, that, there was a couple times I think he